You ever wonder why we have 5 fingers, or 5 senses for that matter? Our sense of sight, our sense of hearing, our sense of smell, our sense of taste, our sense of touch. I remember I met a great yogi in India once, and he shared with me the secret of this number 5. It has to do with the building blocks of the universe and is based in the ancient spiritual science known as Samkhya. Samkhya is the metaphysical framework underneath yoga and tantra. Modern yoga today is largely disconnected from these traditional teachings, and what I'd love to share with you today is how to reconnect to this number 5. It has to do with the 5 great elements known as the Pancha Bhutas. And in specific, I'm going to share about an ancient tantric ritual practice that deals with the purification of these 5 elements. This practice is known as Bhuta Shuddhi. If you're interested and inspired to jump into some of the traditional teachings of transformation, then you're in the right place. Come on, let's take a look at Bhuta Shuddhi and the 5 great elements. Well, what is Bhuta Shuddhi and why is it important? Going back to the number 5 and the 5 great elements, we'll refer to them as Pancha Bhutas. Everything we experience in our life is experienced through our senses. Oftentimes, what we perceive is actually distorted. It's distorted because we perceive it through a filter of biases. The problem with that is if we are responding to inaccurate information, we get inaccurate, or you could say ineffective results. What we want to do, and really the path of yoga and tantra is centered around this idea, is learn how to orient to a version of reality that is accurate, that is real, we could say. And that really has to do with how well are we relating to the immediate natural world that exists within us and all around us. The earth, the water, the fire, the air, and the space. So let's look at how to do that and also why we would want to do that. According to the map given to us by Samkhya, we have the descent of the soul, or the descent of spirit, into form. And that comes through our body and into the world. It goes through certain steps. In the subtle body, we have the chakra system, right? Starting with the crown, which is where the light enters, coming through the third eye, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the sacrum, and all the way down to Muladhara at the tailbone. As that energy is coming down, it's filtering through the matrix of our karma. If the matrix of our karma is not sufficiently purified, you could say, meaning there's residue from our past that is distorting the flow of light coming through us, that residue from our past influences what we do today. And we end up behaving in ways that are actually not really authentic. They're not authentic because we're behaving in a way that is distorted, you could say. As the light descends through us and through our subtle body and into the world, if the subtle body has anything where the energy is stagnant or it's not circulating well, that energy gets stuck. And we end up behaving in ways that are, for lack of better words, not very harmonious. What we want to do is purify that channel of light, right? And you're going to see me kind of demonstrating this central channel. Purify that channel of light so that the energy can come in and it can circulate through us and into our environment. And our perception, our ability to perceive our environment, is really connected to what's actually happening and not what we're projecting with our mind. That brings us into a way of living that is ultimately harmonious with everything around us. I think it's a pretty good goal. So we've talked about what it is, Bhuta Shuddhi, why it's important to purify our relationship to the natural world. And now I want to share with you how it works. This is where a lot of people get stuck. It's easy to understand the spiritual concepts and relate to them in a way that feels good, but to actually put it into practice, that's where a lot of times people end up getting stuck. So let's talk about how to do it. In the traditional model, if we look at what the scripture talks about with regards to Bhuta Shuddhi, it's pretty vague. It talks about the Bija Mantra, which is the seed mantra, or the sound that is associated with each of the chakras. But beyond that, it doesn't really share much. There's a certain aspect of the mantra, yes. There's the nyasa, which is the installation of our awareness in a particular part of the body. There's a visualization. There's some vague descriptions of pranayama. But what's usually missing from the scriptural explanations of Bhuta Shuddhi is the more complete version of the sadhana. What we've done with Bhuta Yoga is we've interpreted these scriptures and we've applied them in a way that allows us to orient to our practice through the archetypal energies that are connected to each of the elements. And the way that we can approach our sadhana with this idea of building our relationship to these archetypal forces is that each of the elements represents a different quality, something that we can work on, something that we can develop, a competency, if you will. So for example, with the element of earth, we have the primary qualities of earth, which are stability, which are grounding, which is groundedness. How do we develop stability and groundedness in our practice? Physical postures, asanas. Those are really great ways to cultivate the physical strength, the structure, the stability, the things that are going to keep us very grounded and stable. We work on that, and we work on the internal. So we bring our awareness and our attention to the tailbone region, Muladhara chakra. We connect to the Bija Mantra of Lam, which is the sound associated with the element of earth. And we infuse the energy at the base of the spine with our awareness, with our prana. And in doing so, it increases the circulation through this region of the body. That obviously influences everything downstream, which is the legs and the base. After the earth element, we work up to the element of water. The qualities of this archetypal force are fluidity, sensitivity, adaptability, flow, working on things like transitions between postures, transitions between breaths, cultivating a sense of ease in our body. If we've accomplished stability through the element of earth, now we can work on our ease and our relaxation. This also corresponds to Patanjali's teachings from the Yoga Sutras, Sutra 2.46, which says, Sthira Sukham Asanam. An asana must be steady and easy. After we've worked through the element of water, then we come to the element of fire. The primary qualities of fire are transformation. One of the ways that we work on purifying our relationship to the element of fire is connecting to our inner fire. Where is it in us that is capable of transformation? And do we have a healthy relationship to the part of us that can change? If we don't, if we have a difficult time adapting to change, or we have a difficult time transforming, you could say, it could be a good sign to look at the element of fire, whether it is in balance or it is imbalanced. We can talk about things like Kriya and Bandha and some of the more, I guess you could say, energetic aspects of Hatha Yoga practice. But generally speaking, we want to look at how well do we apply our effort? And are we consistent enough in our effort, just like creating enough friction in order for combustion to happen? Are we consistent enough in our effort to really create change? That's something to look at. We also have the Bija Mantra of Ram, which we can center here in the solar plexus, but that comes later. After the fire, we come to the element of air at the heart. This element of air is connected very closely to breath. It's also connected to the mind. The primary qualities of air, the air wants to expand. This is the mind. The mind is just jumping from place to place. Really, really difficult to restrain the mind and keep it in one place. Well, when we're working with the element of air, we want to build a relationship to this primal quality, this archetypal force. How do we do that? Well, one of the ways that we do it with Bhuta Yoga is we specifically address the breath through particular pranayama techniques. Techniques that have to do with how well is our body responding to the breath and how well is our body and our mind cooperating with the breath. If we can get the body, the mind, and the breath into cooperation, and all three of those areas are aligned, we can experience a state of yoga, which is a state of unification. After we worked on the air element, then we work up to the level of space, which is the realm of sound, the sense of hearing. Space is the element that all things come into existence inside of. If we don't have space, nothing can become. So how do we address space? There's a really particular aspect of pranayama practice known as kumbhaka, which is the aspect of breath retention that leads us into a state of dissolution. basically a state of what feels like spaciousness or openness. Through the regular practice of kumbhaka and skillfully applying our breath holds, whether we hold the breath in or we hold the breath out, skillfully, right? Not forcefully, but skillfully, we can start to dissolve that sense of limitation and anything that is like a barrier between us and the infinite. That's one of the ways that we address the element of space. It's here in the throat. And the Bija Mantra for this area is Ham. And again, we'll get to that later. After we've addressed all 5 of these elements and their corresponding chakras, earth at Muladhara, water at Svadhisthana, fire at Manipura, air at Anahata, space at Vishuddha. Now we're here at the third eye, the Agya chakra. This is the place that is beyond the 5 elements. It literally sits above the 5 senses physically. Once we've opened the door to the realm of pure mind, I like to call it the place of insight, of intuition, of inspiration, of inner vision, now we are in a visionary place. This is where our imagination starts to see something that's not yet there in the physical world. If we can hold our focus on that which we are imagining for long enough, we can start to bring the light from this area down into form. That is the process of manifestation. That is the process of transformation. That is the process of spiritual evolution. It's all right here in this map. And the process that I describe with Bhuta Shuddhi is the way that we can orient to this map to develop a comprehensive and systematic sadhana that leads us into a state of evolution, of healing, of growth, and ultimately freedom and joy. This allows us to integrate the many facets of our life into a single unified spiritual practice, one that addresses all of the areas. I find that to be really amazing. But don't just take my word for it. Hear what one of my students had to say about their work with Bhuta Yoga.
Grant, for me, has been what I would hope any yoga teacher would be, which is first sort of a master in their own domain. You can't fake that. When you've been around yoga and people who practice yoga, it's something that I become a little bit skeptical of when people tell me they're yoga teachers and they've been practicing for maybe a year or 2 or 3 or, and with Grant, there's no doubt. Just by witnessing how he does what he's doing, that he's spent the hours and years and years and years to master his own energy. And then because of that, he's able to articulate in a way that helped me understand what was possible for me. And of course, any great teacher isn't one that makes us dependent on them, but that sets us free in our own energy. And I really feel that Grant has allowed me to hit a new level of just a calmness, but also an embodiment of what this yoga practice, the potential of this yoga practice is. And I'm forever grateful for what he's offered his students like me in that way. So really, thank you, Grant.
I used to think that yoga was just about stretching. What I realized is that it's actually much, much, much more than just stretching. What I'm inspired to share with you and with the world is the deeper alchemy of this incredible spiritual science. Learning how to integrate the traditional teachings so that our lives today can be enriched by those spiritual sciences that have been refined over more than 1,000 years. As you can see, Bhuta Shuddhi is obviously much more than some ancient dusty technique. It's a ritual map. It's a comprehensive way to orient to our spiritual journey, one that's been passed down over generations to help us remember our connection to the natural world and come into alignment with the forces within and all around us. If this resonates with you, I created a free guide. It's a PDF where you can go into detail on the techniques and the practices related to each of the elements and really start to build your relationship to these archetypal forces. It's my intention behind what I'm sharing to inspire and empower people all over the world to start to deepen their practice and bring these ancient teachings to life in the modern marketplace. Stay tuned for future videos. We have videos coming out on each of the elements: the earth, the water, the fire, the air, the space. Your subscription lets me know that this stuff is landing for someone. So thank you so much for your engagement in that way. And the last thing I'll say is welcome home. Welcome to Bhuta Yoga. Thank you for joining me in this incredible journey of spiritual transformation. I look forward to seeing you for more very soon.